Okay, the last part of this series on the mass concession of the head, we're going to be doing the 3/4 view, and that's going to be it. So the 3/4 view, as we mentioned quite a few times before, to me is the most challenging, but also I think the most interesting. And the main thing really is getting that true sense of that directional change, again, from the chin to the jawline, and from the cheekbones, the front of cheekbones to the side of cheekbones for the zygomatic arches. So that change here and there. Again, imagine that your head is wearing a pair of glasses, just like a pair of glasses. You have this really dramatic plane change that has to happen. The right angle there is from the front to the side, 90 degrees. We're going to try to capture that with our head. Also, good references. This is in your manual, one of the pages. Again, I'm going to send you this cheat sheet. It's online already. I'll reverse it. I'll do it both mirror images of it so you can get these kind of views in two different directions. I really find this head in particular to be one of the more useful ones in the studies I've come across and research I've done. And I also will be putting all those structural drawings of the heads that you guys have been researching for this assignment up on, I'll send you a link for that, a file folder link for that soon. So things to keep in mind. One thing you can kind of see in this illustration here as well is kind of a bit of proportions. So the head is kind of divided into thirds in terms of the face. So from the chin to the nose is 1/3. From the bottom of the nose to the brow ridge is 1/3. And from the brow ridge to the top of the forehead is another third. And then you have that extra height from that slope of the head going up a little bit higher. Okay, so I wanted to mention that. And that will be true, this proportions will be true for any view. Also notice that roundness of the mouth. So we're going to try to get that big plane change. This artist did a great job of capturing that plane change. And it's not a bad idea to actually draw maybe on top of these printouts or on top of your manual as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the nose. My personal favorite is the nose. Let me just kind of, I feel like better now. I guess a little bit better. Just getting some glare here. So my personal favorite is the nose. I'm going to kind of erase this a little bit so you can see a little bit more clearly what I'm doing. I'm going to just kind of continue that line that I had with the nasal ridge, similar to the profile, and bring that plane change from the front plane of the nose to the bottom of the nose, the inside of the head. And I'm going to illustrate this a little bit better with a bigger drawing in a second. But looking at my printout here of this guy, check out that really dramatic plane. So you can see here on the inside of the nose, maybe I can zoom in a little bit. You see more of the side of the nose than the front of the nose in the profile. So you see more of that side than the front, and also notice how that nose overlaps the opposite eye socket. Zoom back a little bit. Okay, so again, good illustration here. So I'm kind of keeping that in mind. I'm going to see more of the side of the nose than the front of the nose. Remember, our bowling pin shape, kind of seen in the 3/4 view, should help to kind of help us to visualize how the nose interacts with the eye socket. So I'm mentioning a bigger drawing of the 3/4 of the nose. So thinking about it, something like this. Here's the front plane, and here's kind of the side plane of it here. And then we have our septum, and then our opening to the nostril, and then kind of flare of our nostril, kind of right there. Maybe not the best drawing of the nose I've ever done. Probably needs to come out maybe a little bit further this way. But hopefully you get the idea of what I'm talking about, that the nose has quite a lot of width to it. It's not just the front plane of it. And then also, again, as it turns inward, you're going to get that cast shadow happening in the nose. All right, so I might continue this drawing as we add kind of other features and finish off the 3/4 view. So kind of the inset drawing, not insect, inset drawing of the nose, blow up. All right, so maybe I'll go in with my pen and refine that a little bit more so you can see it better. And I can see it better as well. I do this for you, but I do it for myself probably more than anyone else because it helps me to know what I'm doing in order to teach you anything. Okay, so I think we got that nose in there pretty good. Let's talk about the mouth and the lips again being part of the mouth. Remember that the mouth is that big barrel shape. I'm going to add a little bit of width to it like I did in the profile view to kind of get the sense of the flesh. Talked about earlier about how we have that letter M being the opening of the mouth. Now that letter M is going to be foreshortened. It's going to be kind of halfway between the profile and the 3/4. So our letter M is going to be more like seen in the 3/4, something like that. You're going to see the inside part of it a lot more than the outside. And what kind of happens is that outside of the lip in 3/4 is kind of a lot more foreshortened. Again, let me go ahead and work on this bigger kind of view so maybe you can understand or see it better. So here's our kind of midline. I should say like the midline goes something like this. Now it's going to go over the contour of the nose. And so here's our letter, our top of our mouth. Here's that opening of the mouth, our letter M, as in M&M's, is going to be, again, 3/4 of what we normally would see it to be. So we're going to see this side of the mouth and the lips are going to seem kind of normal, but the opposite side is going to be foreshortened. It's actually kind of like a disc shape, saucer-like shape. It kind of wraps around. And then the lower lip, again, you only see a little bit of this side, the foreshortened side. It's really kind of tricky to really visualize that. But this is what we're talking about here. Here's the center line of the lips. And then our upper lip will be in shadow, kind of there. Sometimes you might see the other side of the nose a little bit too. My nose looks a little shorter than I would want it to. I might make my nose a little bit higher up. Okay, so here's our lips, and then also that kind of divot underneath the lips, that space that's going to be between the lips and the top of the chin or the mental protuberance. Bring it up a little higher so you can kind of see that. All right, so I'm going to kind of follow suit in my drawing on this 3 views of the head. I'm just going to go right in, add my pen right now. Hopefully you don't get to see my bald head like you did some in the other video. I'll try to avoid that. Didn't realize it till after I rewatched it. And again, thinking about that contour. I made it a little bit bigger than I would like. Okay, so I think we're doing okay. I could definitely do better with more time, but I'm on the spot here. All right, so kind of thinking about the 3/4 view, really taking that quite literal. going to start to kind of put the eyeballs in and think a little bit more about looking at this guy one more time. This is, like I said, I love this drawing. It's so helpful. Every once in a while you just see a drawing like this and it just kind of makes everything come together. It makes a lot more sense of things. One thing I should mention, when you do draw the eyeballs, one thing I found helpful is to actually imagine the eyeballs closed. So closed lids, because you're going to think more about, when you see someone with their lids closed, you see more of the shape of the eyeball, and you see it more as a rounded, complete form rather than separate parts. So sometimes when I draw the eyeball in people, I actually draw them with the eyes closed first. I find that pretty helpful. So again, here's that eyeball shape, mass rather, and then I draw that first, and then if I want to draw the iris, I'll go ahead and put that in. And again, the iris is going to be overlapped by the upper eyelid. Now the opposite eyeball is going to be a little tricky if you haven't drawn this view before, because it's so foreshortened and it's overlapped by the nose. You might not even see the whole iris because it might be overlapped. Or you just might barely see it. And also keep in mind that it is foreshortened. So if you have a circle turned 3/4, you're going to have it be more slight ellipse. See that? So that's going to happen with this view as well. Not as much as a profile, but it does definitely happen. So something to be aware of. Again, think about that core of shadow, making that eyeball rounded. The bottom of the eye and the top of the eye should exist on the same kind of axis. And keep in mind too that the eyes aren't necessarily going to be white again in the opening of the eyes. The white of the eyes isn't necessarily white because they might be in shadow. All right, so I'm going to kind of add a little bit more mass, a little bit more width to the cheeks over here. And then that mouth, that side of the mouth there, actually, if you can see it, it would go behind the nose. There's like this big kind of shape of the mouth that goes behind the nose on one side. And then on the other side that you can see better, it starts to create a shadow kind of over there. And give a little bit of value under there. So maybe I'll go into this drawing again, kind of sketch in the eyeballs a little bit better for you in relation, if you want a little bit more information on that. But maybe talk about like the outside of the mouth here, that shape, that barrel shape of the mouth I was just mentioning. It starts on one side and goes behind the other side of the nose. All right, so I'm going to put in my eye sockets pretty quick, kind of like what I did the other day. I mentioned the goggles shape or the safety goggles shape, thinking about putting them into, let's see, it doesn't look so hot, but putting them into perspective, thinking about the cheekbones on a plane, thinking about how the eye sockets kind of unite together at the center, which is above the nose. Maybe raise that up a little bit higher. Okay, I think that's looking halfway decent. So eyeballs, kind of put them on the same plane. Draw that ball shape. come up a little bit higher in this case, but I hope this looks okay. I've been doing all right with these bigger drawings, so hopefully I keep that up. All right. Okay, that looks a little, okay, now it looks like he's kind of staring out to the side a little bit, which is kind of cool. And again, that opposite eyeball, not going to see much of it. Going to be overlapped by the nose, and it's foreshortened anyway. Let's see, maybe move that over a little bit more. Yeah, that's not so bad. One point I want to make, going to looking at these printouts, a page about the eyeballs in particular. What did I do with that? All right. I want to show you guys a detail of the eyeballs at some point. I'll find it sooner or later. All right, let's just keep on going. I do want to mention this page again. This is kind of a useful kind of 3/4 view of the head. And also thinking about like, here's another eyeball from kind of the 3/4 view. This is a nose from the 3/4 view. So anytime that you guys can get actual illustrations that are basically what you're looking at, the same thing that you're looking at, same view, that really helps a lot. Okay, so, another thing I wanted to mention, that kind of third rule, again, here, 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 and then there. You can see it in the profile. So lots of useful information on these pages. Okay, let's get back to our head, and I will find that thing about the eyeballs sooner or later. Here we go. Here's my information about the eyeballs. So these are like structural drawings. Check this out here. This line here represents the nose, as you would see it in an eyeball being overlapped by the nose. That's what that line kind of represents. And you can see how that eyeball actually goes behind the nose. Good exercise to actually kind of draw on some of these, kind of finish it off, like where the nose, cheekbone, and things like that would be. So I like to do that stuff inside of my manual, and I've done this kind of stuff my whole life. It's just a way of kind of learning. So check that out. I think that's actually pretty cool right there. Very helpful. If you wanted to, you could go in, draw an iris on that eyeball as well. It might be fun to go and draw irises in all of these. Again, there's different views here, so you can have foreshortening, things like that as well. Okay, so there's some fun exercises to think about. Well, I'm getting kind of carried away with that now. All right, let's go ahead and finish our 3/4 view off. Let's get to the ears. Hopefully our guy here is a good listener, so he's got decent sized ears. Sorry, my hand out of the way there. Sometimes being a lefty is good, and sometimes it's being bad. It's bad for demonstration purposes. But this is still better than when I do it on the chalkboard. I'm standing in front of it half the time, which is difficult, but I like drawing on that bigger scale. I do miss that, among other things. So there's my ear. Not saying it's the best ear I've ever drawn. I don't want to keep this going on forever. I think you guys are getting the gist of it. And look forward to seeing your drawings. Might talk about the underside of kind of the jawline there. There's like a plane right there. Here's going to be our sternomastoid muscle that connects from the mastoid process to the sternum. And then our neck, kind of our Adam's apples over here. Again, think about it similar to the profile. Your neck is not going to be straight up and down. It's going to have an angle to it, whereas the front view, it is more straight up and down. But on the 3/4 view, you're going to see it have a tilt to it. All right. Sternomastoid, Adam's apple, and then the trapezius muscle once again. And the back of my head is probably a little bigger, goes back a little further than I need it to, with that egg shape kind of mass. All right, so we got all the features in. If you wanted to add the hair, kind of refer back to the profile view, maybe that might help you the most. And hopefully you guys are still doing this, going across the page, kind of comparing the features one to the next, with the idea that you want to, I think my forehead here has come up a little taller, with the idea that you want to make one view look similar to the next. In other words, to make it look like the same person. And doing it from your imagination, that's going to be hardest. If you draw from someone from life, in person, you're going to have a lot better time with that because you have the actual thing to observe. All right, so I'm not saying that this is any big shakes. The whole point is just to learn, get better at this. How this drawing is lit right here is a good idea for how to light it. Notice how that guy describes the temple, really nicely done there. And he's got the big core of shadow, the big plane change is captured. And you can see the zygomatic arch illustrated in there as well. His view might be a slightly turned more away kind of 3/4 view than what I tried to do as well. So it's more foreshortened than what I did. All right. And so the trapezoids kind of go up here, then they reappear on the other side. You're going to see the opposite shoulder more on this. Something like that. Okay. Every time I do this exercise, there's always one view that I get that's just better than the others. It's always different, usually. One day it might be the straight on view, the next time it might be the 3/4. Sometimes it's the profile, etc., etc. Every once in a while, I get all three of them pretty good. This one I'd put somewhere in the middle. I do think if I had to pick one view that was the strongest, definitely think the profile is the strongest. I think I captured the foreshortening of that pretty nice. I had a good thing going with the 3/4 view of the skull, but I don't know, when I put the fleshed it out, kind of lost some of that big plane change. So again, it's good to take pictures, as you go along too, I should mention. So it's nice to take pictures as you go to help you kind of see what you did. Maybe you might realize, well, maybe I should have done this a little bit differently. But anyhow, let's go ahead and we're going to call that a complete and finished demo. So you can try a male and a female. You can try doing 2 from life. You can try doing 2 from your imagination, or 1 from life, 1 from your imagination, with the 2 pages. And if you need to, you can print out more of these pages, the single frame pages, like I showed you in one of the demos. But I'm going to go ahead and call it a finished product here, and check your emails, and you'll be getting some information tomorrow before class. Thanks.